Who could have handled such a huge workload in such a short time? And where did all the money come from? Scholars look to the writings of Greek historians for the answer. Herodotus and Diodorus both spoke of a tyrant from Agrigento called Theron, who a few years earlier had won a devastating war against the Phoenicians. As well as riches, the victory brought him slaves, a vast number of them. So many, in fact, that some of the inhabitants of Agrigento owned more than 500. Could they have been the workforce that built the Valley of the Temples? This is what the Temple of Concordia would have looked like with its original colors in the 4th century BC. It was once thought, incorrectly, that all Greek temples were white. The Temple of Concordia is a typical temple of the classical period, with 6 columns on the short sides and 13 on the long sides, surmounted by clean-shaped Doric capitals. Its base, made up of 4 steps, was designed to overcome the rises and drops in the rocky terrain. The poet Pindar said that Agrigento was the most beautiful city of mortals. In a tranquil setting not far away at Selinunte, also known as Selinus, are 3 temples erected in a row on level ground. Ancient and majestic, they're identified simply by letters of the alphabet, E, F, and G. But very little is known about them. The ruins of the most imposing one, Temple G, have baffled some archaeologists. The columns, ruined at the base, are partly smooth and partly fluted. Although the different styles were both used by the Greeks, in no temple were both styles used together. What was the reason for this mixture? Certainly not for aesthetics, since classical Greek art was based on stylistic consistency. Archaeologists then compared the design with contemporary building techniques. We know that columns were assembled in blocks, the so-called drums, one on top of the other, until they reached the Capitol, and only then fluted. Therefore, the column of Temple G may have been unfinished. But why was it never finished? Scholars think they've found the answer in some diplomatic treaties between the Greeks and Phoenicians. Although Selinunte remained a Greek city, it came under Phoenician influence around 409 BC, a watershed in its history. In order to conquer Selinunte, the Phoenicians attacked with overwhelming force and destroyed many of its monuments. Most likely, Temple G, still needing its final touches, was destroyed at that time. Standing in their full glory, the temples would have been a grand sight. Temple G was perfectly aligned with Temple E. The sacred complex that included a third temple, called Temple F, was erected on the city's eastern hill. The largest of the 3 was Temple G, which measured 113 by 54 meters. In the 6th century BC, it was one of the most regal of the Greek world, soaring to almost 30 meters in height. Its size has been gauged by its 17-meter-high columns. Their abacus, the square part of the capital that rests on the architrave, extended for 19 square meters. The majestic Temple G demonstrates the importance of the city of Selinunte, founded as a colony of another city, Megara Hyblia. Selinunte developed more, however, because of its two seaports. The wealth of the city encouraged a certain degree of sophistication in its architecture. The space inside, the nave, the heart of the temple, has no roof covering. Did this temple have some function other than religious? Its grand size and importance seem to suggest so. After studying an inscription found there, archaeologists concluded that it may have contained the treasury of Selinunte, like the main temples of other Sicilian cities. The central nave was arranged on two levels. The upper level, accessed by two side staircases, was not open to worshippers. Besides aesthetics, it had a more practical function. It was used for the routine upkeep of this high structure, particularly the colossal wooden trusses that supported the roof. The temple's cellar housed a statue of the god, probably Apollo or perhaps Zeus. Among the ruins, archaeologists discovered only a headless bust, so the discussion remains open. The Acropolis, the highest part of the city, was the site of Temple C. The new Phoenician quarters were built in the vicinity of the Acropolis after Selinunte had come under their control. But the Greeks had decided to stay. The Elimi, an indigenous population from nearby Segesta, later frequented the city. Although they often fought with the inhabitants of Selinunte, at times they also collaborated with them. The Greek historian Thucydides recalled the signing of a treaty between the two peoples, allowing them to intermarry, giving birth to the mixture of cultures that made the island great. With its trade, riches and ancient buildings, Sicily was the heart of Magna Graecia, bridging continents and civilizations, a fertile and colourful land, where long after Homer's time, the Greeks still believed the cattle of the sun gods roamed the hills. The jewel of the exotic, ancient Mediterranean.